Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all very much for your patience and for coming out today. We're delighted to see so many of you here, all the way up to the roof. Fantastic. We're just about to get our program started, so I would ask you all to please rise for the entrance of the official party. Thank you.
I've always wanted to do that. The Right Honourable Beverley McLachlin, Chief Justice of Canada, His Honour, the Honourable Stephen Point, Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, members of the official party, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our hosts, Chancellor Sarah Morgan-Sylvester, Board Chair Bill Levine, and Professor Stephen Toop, welcome to the official opening of UBC Faculty of Law's new home, Allard Hall. My name is Mary Ann Babinski, and I have the honor of serving both as the 7th Dean of UBC's Faculty of Law and as the MC for this very special ceremony. We are delighted to be joined by so many senior members of the legal community from British Columbia and from across Canada, as well as government representatives. Please hold your applause while I introduce a few of those who are present. The Honourable Chief Justice Peter Blais of the Federal Court of Appeal, the Honourable Chief Justice Edmund Blanchard of the Court Martial Appeals Court of Canada, the Honourable Chief Justice Lance Finch of the B.C. Court of Appeal, the Honourable Chief Justice Warren Winkler of the Ontario Court of Appeal, the Honourable Chief Justice Robert Bowman of the Supreme Court of B.C., the Honourable Chief Justice David Osborne of the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador, judges from the Provincial Superior Courts, as well as judges of the Provincial and Territorial Courts. I would also like to recognize Ms. Joyce Murray, Member of Parliament for Vancouver Quadra, Mr. Mark Dalton, MLA for Maple Ridge Mission, and Mr. David Lucadelis, Deputy Attorney General, Province of British Columbia. We're joined on this special day as well by elders and representatives from the Musqueam. In recognition of the fact that the university is situated on traditional Musqueam land, I would now like to invite Councillor Howard Grant, Cultural CM from the Musqueam Indian Band, to the podium to bring a welcome from the Musqueam people.
Thank you, Dean Babinski. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, students. My name is Kayapalanuch. He was my great-great-great-great-grandfather who met Captain Vancouver and Captain Narvaez as they approached the shores of this beautiful land that we live on. He was the war chief of our community, and on behalf of the Musqueam people, I wish to welcome you to our unceded traditional territory. We are the Hunkaminam-speaking people of the Coast Salish. We wish to thank President Toop and the University of B.C. for recognizing and acknowledging on whose territory this great teaching institution is located. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge Dean Ken Lissick, for it was he who started the First Nations Law program. UBC has been a leader in recruiting First Nations students and in providing legal education. Musqueam members have been beneficiaries of this initiative because today we have 5 law graduates and 2 more in their final years of education in the law program. Previously, Musqueam was a warrior nation that had the responsibility of protecting the land, sea, and the people of the neighboring villages up and down the Fraser River against hostile nations. Today, the battlefields have taken on new surroundings, the courtrooms, and we are still protecting what is ours. 2 of our cases, the Garin and the Sparrow, are cited frequently on the national and international fronts. The Canadian Bar National Magazine has ranked the Sparrow case as number 19 and the Garin case as number 28 in importance during these past 100 years. We wish to thank Dean Mary Ann Bobinski for inviting Musqueam participation in the advisory committee. We would like to thank the many other members who were part of the advisory committee, as well as the architects for their patience and dedication to finding opportunity to represent and feature First Nations art, architecture, and history. In particular, thank you for enhancing Musqueam's presence on this campus. Today, we wish to thank you, our guests, for witnessing the opening of this great new facility. Once again, on behalf of my people, the Musqueam, welcome and thank you. Haitsep Eworth, Yemp Nasiaya.
Thank you very much for those words of welcome. In a moment, you'll have an opportunity to hear from some of our other distinguished speakers. But before I introduce them, I'd like to introduce some other important guests in the audience today. And I think, I hope at least, that you'll forgive me if I start with the deans and former deans. Family members of George Curtis, our founding dean, and the late Dean Ken Lissick, who you just heard referred to, Bertie McLean, Peter Burns, Madam Justice Lynn Smith, and Joost Blum. We also have representatives of important programs in the building, the UBC Law Library, the BC Law Institute, the International Center for Criminal Law Reform and Criminal Justice Policy. We have members of the design and construction team who were referred to a moment ago, UBC Properties Trust, Diamond and Schmidt Architects, and joint venture with CEI Architecture Planning Interiors, and ITC Construction Group. You also want to make welcome all those who are viewing this celebration via webcast today. We also have members of the UBC Board of Governors, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends. Welcome to you all, and thank you for your participation in this incredibly special moment for the Faculty of Law and for the university generally. I think anyone who's had association with the Faculty of Law knows that this is a building that's been a long time coming. And it's important as we share in the celebration of this new space and as we're with each other in these warm wooden walls, feeling the light and the air all around us, a heating and cooling system in obvious use, to thank those who've helped make this building happen. And we're going to have an opportunity to hear from our lead donors for this building project in a short while. But I wanted to also thank some pivotal donors to the project, Ferris and Company, Davis, Richards Buell Sutton, Borden Ladner Gervais, Faskin Martineau, Clark Wilson, and a group of dedicated alumni in Hong Kong. We look at this space and we think about the challenges that the law school has confronted over decades in its old building, and there's a temptation to think we're here. But actually, of course, we're just at the beginning. A building is bricks and mortars, and it's the ambition of what we could do with this building that drove the project forward. And it's our sense of possibility and hope as we're in the room thinking about all that we'll accomplish here that will fuel our energy in the years and decades to come. We've just completed a strategic planning process that states that we are dedicated to being one of the world's great centers for legal education and research. And I think as you're in this space, you feel a sense that that is entirely possible. This particular building was just constructed to help us carry out that vision. It has modern classrooms, it has wonderful research facilities, it has a fantastic library, and it has the technology that will allow us to ensure that everything that happens in this building can have an impact across British Columbia, across Canada, and around the world through the use of technology and webcasting, distance learning classes, and otherwise. It's your generous support, your leadership, your dedication, your sense that this really could happen that has brought us to this day. And we are so grateful to all of you in this room who've helped make today happen. So once again, applause. It's now my sincere honor to introduce our first speaker, the Right Honourable Beverley McLachlin, Chief Justice of Canada. A native of Alberta, Chief Justice McLaughlin joined the Faculty of Law at UBC in 1974. She was appointed to the County Court of Vancouver in 1981 and subsequently elevated to the BC Supreme Court and then the BC Court of Appeal. She returned to the BC Supreme Court in 1988 as Chief Justice and soon thereafter was appointed to the Supreme Court of Canada. She's served as Chief Justice of Canada since 2000. The Chief Justice is the recipient of numerous honorary degrees, and of course, for us, the most important is the honorary degree she received from the University of British Columbia in 1990. Chief Justice McLaughlin.
Your Excellency, Mr. Point, Chancellor Morgan Sylvester, Mr. Levine, Vice Chancellor Toop, Dean Bobinski, members of Academe, justices, distinguished guests. The list goes on too long, but it is truly an honor to be here before you this morning. I am among those who thought this day would never come. I suffered for many years in the East Wing, where new faculty was housed, and it was said my office had the best view in the world. The only problem was I had to stand up and practically get whiplash to get a glimpse of it. It was, those who apologized for the building said, well, at least it keeps the elements out. But even that wasn't true. As all of us who worked and learned in that building know, buckets were the main decorative element along the corridors. The plants thrived, however, and so did the students, and so did the spirit. When I came up the hill this morning, that was the first glimpse I had ever had of this new, wonderful building. And I had no preconceptions. I didn't know whether I'd like it or not, but all I could say was, wow. It is truly a magnificent structure and a transparent structure full of light and positive vibrations. I am sure, as the Dean says, that it will guide us in the years, guide this institution in the years to come to do great things for justice. C'est un grand plaisir de me trouver parmi vous à Vancouver en cette heureuse occasion. Non seulement parce que j'ai enseigné jadis dans cette faculté, mais surtout parce que j'assiste à l'inauguration d'un bâtiment qui permettra à la faculté de droit de l'Université de Colombie-Britannique de continuer à former la crème des hommes et des femmes de loi de demain. Students come to law school for many reasons, but underlying the multitude of interests that lead them to law is a desire to use the law as a tool of justice. Justice is innate to every sentient human being, hardwired into our brains and into our values. Early philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle were preoccupied with justice. And literature, from Shakespeare through Dostoevsky to Kafka to our modern crime thrillers, attests to the centrality of justice in human thinking and human affairs. When we understand this, we understand how important it is that we provide the very best education to the next generation of lawyers, academics, and judges. The work they will undertake is not a luxury. It's not a frill. It is essential to individual fulfillment, societal stability, and economic growth. In preparing for this task, it is important that the lawyers of the future are given the right tools, the right skills, and the right environment. Il importe de leur fournir les outils, les compétences et le cadre dont ils ont besoin lorsqu'ils se préparent à cette mission. The building we are inaugurating today is a fundamental part of this process. No longer is the Faculty of Law burdened with a building that simply, as I said, keeps the elements out. As of today, it's the proud guardian of a building that will sustain and inspire everyone who passes through its doors for generations to come. It's my hope that this building will function as a gathering place where the rule of law is perpetuated, where justice is promoted, and where the service to the public is idealized, and that through its architecture and design, it will inspire. Je souhaite que cet immeuble soit un lieu de rassemblement où l'on perpétue la primauté du droit, où l'on promeut la justice et où on se fait la plus haute idée du service au public, et que par sa conception et son architecture, il devient une source d'inspiration. I am most honored and deeply gratified that you have allowed me to be part of this very special day. Merci.
Thank you, Chief Justice Mclaughlin. I'm pleased to announce that in recognition of your commitment to access to legal services and with the support of the Law Foundation of British Columbia and members of the profession, the University of British Columbia has recently been able to establish the Beverley McLachlin Legal Access Award, which will provide support for students pursuing articles in underserved communities or in social justice or public interest organizations. We are extremely honored to be able to offer this award in your name. It's now my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker, His Honor Stephen Point, Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. Originally from Chilliwack, His Honor received a Bachelor of Laws degree from UBC in 1985 and was called to the bar in British Columbia in 1986. His Honor previously served as Director of the First Nations Legal Studies Program here at UBC, as a Provincial Court Judge, and Chief Commissioner of the BC Treaty Commission. His Honor also served as elected Chief of the Skokow First Nation, Tribal Chair of the Stolo Nation Government, and was honored as Grand Chief by the Chiefs of the Stolo Tribal Council. His Honor was sworn in as British Columbia's 28th Lieutenant Governor in 2007. Your Honor.
Chief Justice, honorable members of the platform, honorable members of the audience, honorable students, I'm not really that prepared to make any comments, but I have a few notes to make. It is my honor to be here today in celebration and thanks. In celebration, because it's a new building. It's a new beginning. In thanks, because of all those who've given so generously towards this amazing structure, particularly you, Mr. Allard. Thank you, sir, for your generosity. It's also a time of transformation, from the old to the new. From the Curtis Building to Allard Hall. I like that. Nothing changes, nothing stays the same too long. Everything is in constant transformation, in fact. And perhaps today we're putting away Einstein's theory of the speed of light. Who knows? It serves to remind us, however, that there are some things that must remain the same. This university, this faculty, enjoys an international reputation that must be handed from one generation to the next. It's not built of bricks and stone, but it's built on ideas. It's built with the energy and the intellect of those participants in this university, and particularly in this law school. We are standing on the shoulders of many great men and women who've come before us. The students here are challenged, I think, to maintain a high standard, not only in personal conduct, but as the guardians and defenders of our very foundation of our democracy, those cherished principles and freedoms that we've saw fit to place into the highest law of the land, our Constitution. Yes, we're in a new building, but as everything, someday even this will fade away. But my dear people, that's what we believe in, that's what we stand for, that's what we even give our lives for, can never change. And I'm so honored to be here in this new beginning, where this faculty and this university has saw fit to set aside space for the development and growth of Aboriginal concepts in law. And I've come bearing gifts, potlatching, if you will, for you. Dean, I'd like to present you with this. If you would kindly place it in that hall for me as a reminder of this new beginning, but also my thanks for this wonderful notion and idea of Aboriginal space here in this amazing facility. You'll pardon me, I wrapped it myself at 5 o'clock this morning. This is elastic bands. It's to remind you to be flexible yet organized. And it covers the 7 points of our original Aboriginal faith, the 7 laws that I hope will be taught here in this school, because we have laws that go back centuries and we still believe in them today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Your Honor, and for this amazing privilege of also receiving this gift, which we will display proudly. Thank you so much. It's with great pleasure that I now introduce our President and Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Toope. Prior to joining UBC in 2006, Mr. President Toope was President of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, and before that, Dean of Law at McGill University. He knows something about law schools. Professor Toope has been a very strong supporter of the faculty and of this important project. Professor Toope.
Madam Chief Justice of Canada, Your Honour, we are so proud to have you as members of our community. This is a family occasion, and it feels like one. Thank you so much for being here. Madam Chancellor, Mr. Chair of the Board of Governors, distinguished jurists from here and across the country, students of UBC. Well, as we've heard, this may be one of the most overdue occasions in the history of our university, and it is a time for unconstrained celebration. When we first announced the successful completion of this building campaign back in July, an enthused member of our development office staff, a mother of 2 children, was overheard to make a playful, but I think profoundly appropriate remark. She said, "Now that we have the mortgage paid off, we can look after the kids." Well, having given that metaphor some thought, I've concluded that there may not be a better way to describe the point at which we've arrived today, or the special kind of levity that it brings. The kind of levity that's the result of knowing that we've overcome a significant financial challenge, that we're now clear, as we've heard from the Dean, to focus our attention on what matters most. True, the kids in this case are mostly young adults pursuing legal education and research, but I think you get the point. To carry the metaphor just a step further, we've not only paid off the mortgage, we've paid off the mortgage on our dream home, one with everything that the family of law needs and deserves. So forgive me if I sound a little bit like an over-enthusiastic realtor. I am in Vancouver, after all. But as a legal professor myself, I am really anxious for you to see our new place. And when you do, I'm sure that it's going to become immediately obvious that Allard Hall provides a truly inspiring environment for study and collaboration. What may not be immediately obvious, however, is that Allard Hall is also a comprehensive model of sustainability, fulfilling our university objectives, one that meets LEED Gold standards. I should perhaps also mention that we have some tenants. They're not just any tenants, mind you, 2 major law reform organizations, the BC Law Institute and the UN-affiliated International Center for Criminal Law Reform and Criminal Justice Policy. Besides, they'd been in the old building or next to it for years, so it seemed heartless not to make room for them here. And we are very proud of those partnerships. In a few minutes, you are all going to have an opportunity to see for yourself what Allard Hall is really all about. Befitting, I think, and benefiting for future generations, one of Canada's leading centres for legal education and research, and one that, as we have heard, aspires to even greater global influence. And it is from here that our graduates will go on to leadership positions in a broad range of spheres: chief justices, lieutenant governors, the legal profession, government, public interest organizations, businesses, and academe. And with that in mind, I must acknowledge all who've contributed to the unprecedented success of our building campaign and for making our dream home of Allard Hall a reality. To the Law Foundation of B.C, you laid the cornerstone by committing $12 million in matching funds. That was a bold leap of faith and an expression, I think, of great foresight. Thank you to the Law Foundation of British Columbia. Thank you as well to leading law firms that have provided major gifts, hundreds of alumni and friends whose generosity further drove the campaign, to the UBC staff who invested time, toil, and passion, to our faculty members and students for their unbelievable patience, and finally, to Peter Allard, whose extraordinary generosity we today honor in name. Mr. Allard, you don't know this, but I made a promise to our Board of Governors that we would be able to convince a distinguished naming donor to have faith in this project. Thank you for making a truth teller out of me. Your university is deeply grateful for your marvelous gift. On behalf of the University of British Columbia, our students, our faculty, our staff, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who have supported us. As for the new home, well, trust me, the kids are going to love it. Each and every one of us. Thank you.
Professor Tooth, thank you so much for your remarks today and for your commitment to this project. I'm now delighted to introduce you all to Peter Allard. Peter graduated from UBC with a BA in History in 1968 and a LLB in 1971. After graduation, Peter practiced law and participated in various business enterprises. With a keen legal mind and a passionate commitment to creating positive change, Peter has also assumed leadership roles in human rights, environmental advocacy, and other philanthropic work. He's demonstrated fearless perseverance and deep integrity on behalf of these causes, both locally and globally. Peter.
Chief Justice Mclaughlin, Your Honor, and distinguished guests. Over 40 years ago, I used to hitchhike or sometimes take the bus to UBC Law School from 10th and Elm every day. I had no idea that the mystery of law and its impact on society would become so ingrained in my psyche and change my life from that point on. Back then at UBC, the hip people brought their dogs into the library to sit under their desk while they studied. The cool students played bridge in the common room all day long. And for simple numbers reasons, women students had their own special room. People like me didn't fit into any of those categories, so we developed friendships with others who were neither cool nor hip, just different. Characters and strong personalities filled the law school. Sometimes it seemed to me that at least 10% were certifiable or on their way. I made many friendships then, some of which have lasted to this day. 3 of my 4 brothers graduated from law. We all practiced for several years to 20 years, giving service to our clients. We all felt that pro bono work was important, as well as making a living. The practice of law was always a series of challenges that kept us on our toes and kept our minds working. My application for law school was inspired by my father, who always wanted to be a lawyer. He was the top of his class in medicine and the chief surgery of the Edmonton General Hospital. He started at least 7 major companies from scratch: printing companies, car dealerships, construction companies, trust companies, banks and insurance companies, methanol plants, and similar major enterprises. My father had an insatiable appetite to learn, understand, and master everything. It was during my time at UBC that I grew to appreciate how the law affected every aspect of our lives. On looking back over my many years in law, there was no more important class in my mind than the first-year course in ethics. Honesty, integrity, and the unofficial smell test are the hallmarks of the rule of law, and with the rule of law comes justice. It fosters to this day a sense that the rule of law is and should be accessible to and respectful of every single human being. The UBC professors who dedicated their lives in decades past, and in some cases still do, to teaching law will always be with me. Characters and scholars such as Dean Curtis, Bertie McLean, Charles Bourne, Tony Shepard, and many others who inspired me and my fellow students with their deep understanding of their respective specialty in law. There is no question in my mind that these dedicated professors sacrificed their time and effort for the love of teaching. But they also knew that it was the only way that the lifeblood of transparency, ethics, and justice for all would be carried forward by the young generation sitting in front of them. And that is why I am here, to help UBC Law and its students and faculty carry on. It is a thrill for me to be part of the opening of this new building. I envy all the thousands of young and not so young dynamic minds that will come through these doors daily for several years each. They will be challenged by tuition fees, living costs, exams, marks, new relationships, along with the uncertainties and promises of future jobs and direction. You already know that lawyers are involved in and affect every segment of our lives, often behind the scenes. And I don't have to remind anyone that lawyers, besides practicing law, go into politics, become judges, and pursue a host of other occupations in the private and public sector. Many of you know or can expect that the practice of law can be a grind. I have deep respect for those who do the grind year in and year out in their ethical service to society. But I have an even greater respect for those who believe that buried deep within each legal strategy or decision must be a social contract and equity that provides for the long-term greater good in society, no matter how trivial a task, no matter how small the retainer. Our profession has more impact on our society than any other. When we do our job well, we see that the rule of law is upheld, and we protect our clients, our neighbors, and fellow citizens against the vagaries of unchecked abuses of power and corruption. If we didn't do this day in and day out, we would lose our freedom. It is more than eternal vigilance that is the price of freedom, but a strong and moral judicial activism to enforce these concepts. And if we don't do this right away, we will not sustain long-term growth and stability for our nation and our fellow world citizens. I do worry. Over the past decade, I have noticed that legal checks and balances have sometimes flown out the window, with lawyers losing sight of their privileged role in society and their duty to uphold the rule of law. I think sometimes lawyers are willfully blind or regrettably even complicit in short-term gains and greed of their clients versus long-term growth and stability. We only have to look at what happened in 2008. It was a time when rating company opinions were bought and banks accepted security documents knowing that they were not AAA, but rather junk bond status, or in fact worthless. Ordinary people now suffer terribly as a result of regulatory bodies being gutted and silenced. Equity losses in homes, business, and pension funds have hurt nearly everyone in our nation and around the world to a degree never before seen in my lifetime. It didn't have to happen. There are many lawyers, as well as individuals and organizations, who fought for responsible corporate governance and reasonable regulation, but it wasn't enough. The small group of lawyers who did speak up were drowned out by those who put profit before principle. Willful blindness and blinkers were the modus operandi. How does this affect me? And it's none of my business, that allowed an unaccountable process to take root and accelerate. Too many of our countrymen have suffered and are paying the price today for this decade of deregulation and loss of checks and balances. But every person here has a special talent, and this talent can be a part of the process to restore accountability and transparency to our fragile democracies. It is my belief that the UBC Law at Allard Hall could be pivotal each year in recognizing and spotlighting one or more individuals and or organizations internationally who have struggled to overcome the abuse of power or who have steadfastly promoted human rights to champion a much more stable and sustainable long-term democracy. To this end, in addition to my gift to the law school, I have committed to fund the creation of an annual Allard Prize for International Integrity. The prize will each year highlight one or more individuals or groups who have struggled to enforce the rule of law so that basic human rights can triumph over abuses and corruption. I would like to pay tribute to those who worked collaboratively and supportively to help create and build this new building. All the people who have helped me through my life, especially my professors, colleagues, clients, friends, and advisors, my long-term personal secretary, Denny Flynn, Bob Lee, who steadfastly encouraged this donation, President Stephen Toop, Dean Marianne Babinski, Heather McGaw, Carrie Strelaski, Rob King, Tom Bell, and Jeff Lister. And finally, my father, whose motto was, "It is not how far I walked, it is how many lives I've touched along the way." And my mother, whose indomitable spirit, commitment, and social conscience taught me and my siblings the difference between right and wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your visionary leadership, your support of this project, and your investment not just in the bricks and mortar of this building, but in the moral compass and the sense of inspiration and duty that we hope people who pass through these halls will feel. So thank you once again. As you have mentioned, the Allard Prize for International Integrity is a key aspect of your relationship with the law school. That prize, set at least $50,000, will be awarded annually. It will build on UBC Law at Allard Hall's longstanding commitment to the promotion of justice and to the involvement of faculty and students in the promotion of integrity, ethics, and the rule of law around the world. The first prize will be awarded next fall here in Allard Hall, and I'm to instruct you to visit our website, www.law.ubc.ca, in the coming months to get information about the prize. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge Peter's family and friends who are in attendance today. It's my pleasure to now introduce Margaret Saskes, Chair of the Law Foundation of British Columbia. And you've heard a little bit through this morning's ceremony about the importance of the Law Foundation in making this building project happen. The Law Foundation's vision is to nurture a society where access to justice is protected and advanced for all. It has a long history of supporting legal access, legal research, legal education, law libraries, and, of course, of providing financial support to UBC Law. We are very grateful for the long-standing relationship between the Law Foundation of British Columbia and the Faculty of Law. Our legal clinics, our educational programs, our faculty research all benefit from this generous support. And we are here today to thank you and the Foundation for your commitment to making this building project happen. Without your foundational gift, we would not be here today.
Thank you, Dean Babinski. Chief Justice Mclaughlin, Your Honour, members of the official party and distinguished guests. It is very much my pleasure to be here today. This is such an inspiring building. I know that lots of great things are going to come out of it soon and for a long time into the future. The Law Foundation in particular is delighted to be here today to celebrate with you the opening of UBC's Faculty of Law at Allard Hall. The Law Foundation of British Columbia is the oldest law foundation on the continent. And we receive interest on lawyers' pooled trust accounts, and we then use that money to fund legal aid, legal education, law reform, legal research, and law library activities in the province. At this point, we are giving annual grants to 95 different continuing programs and a variety of time-limited projects. And the Foundation is working through all these programs to promote access to justice for people throughout British Columbia. Central to the notion of access to justice are well-trained lawyers. And through the Law Foundation's $12 million grant to UBC for this building, the governors of the foundation are convinced that this is now insured for generations to come. We are delighted to see that the Law Foundation has been fully matched from contribution by members of the bar. And Mr. Allard and others, we particularly thank you. As was mentioned earlier, we took a step of faith by offering this money, but there were conditions attached, and the condition attached was that the community also step forward and match those grants. So we were delighted to see that the community believed in this new school as much as the Law Foundation did. We are equally delighted that in the new building there is also space for other valuable programs which the Law Foundation funds. This includes the Law Students Legal Advice Program, the British Columbia Law Institute, the International Centre for Criminal Law Research and Reform, and Pro Bono Students Canada. These are all important organizations which the Law Foundation funds, and we are certain that them being at the law school can only enrich the learning environment here. There are several former governors of the Law Foundation who are also present here today and who were instrumental in making this grant a reality. I get to take the glory because I'm the current chair, but we have two former chairs here, Warren Wilson, QC, and Mary Mowat, who were both chairs of the Law Foundation during the years when we were making the decisions to make these grants. And as well, Liaison Governor Madam Justice Pamela Kirkpatrick of the British Columbia Court of Appeal had hoped to be here, but unfortunately other duties required that she be elsewhere this morning. I do want to acknowledge the contribution that the two past chairs and all our governors have made in making the decisions that have brought us here today. The mission of the Law Foundation is to advance and promote a just society governed by the rule of law through leadership, innovation, and collaboration. We believe we have advanced this mission through our contribution to this incredible building and to the rich potential that it represents. In closing, I want to acknowledge the energy and inspiration of Dean Babinski, without whom this could not have happened. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and thanks to the Board of Governors of the Law Foundation of British Columbia for all you do, not just for the law school, but for the people of British Columbia, and we're very grateful. Special thanks to all of the speakers and distinguished guests who've enjoyed today, and thank you to everyone here for helping to make this day a success. Law is about values and truths and inspiring things, and it's also about procedure. And I'm now about to tell you about some procedural things. We're going to do a little shifting up here and bring forward, and I invite to come forward Chancellor Sarah Morgan-Sylvester and Mr. Bill Levine, Chair of the Board of Governors, because the chairs are going to disappear and we're going to take pictures of the unveiling of the plaque. Once we've done those pictures, the official party is going to exit, and you'll receive another announcement about that. And after you exit, there's going to be a reception back there in the Hong Kong Alumni Student Lounge. And then, as you're having your cinnamon bun or whatever it is, those of you who would like tours of the new building can go to the second floor. About 15 minutes after this ceremony ends, go to the second floor, and tours will be led off by our student volunteers. So I would now like to invite the Chancellor and the Board Chair to come forward, and you will receive another announcement shortly after the pictures take place.